Fear is the path to the dark side.
This is Tatooine Sons, the only fan podcast to name a canon Star Wars creature and to be endorsed by the writer and director of The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson. Gentlemen, what did you think about the title of Ahsoka Episode 5, Shadow Warrior? It gives me some vibes of those old samurai films, like very Kurosawa-esque.
Yeah, very much so. But like in the Star Wars context, it makes me think about Anakin's transformation more than anything.
Yeah, for me, it kind of reminds me of like the shadows of the past and things that can be brought up from one's past again.
Absolutely. Well, we'll unravel that today and maybe some of those shadows from the past after this message from our friends over at the Christian Nerd HQ. This is Tatooine Sons.
We are the Reverend and the Reprobate, just two best buds interviewing people we have no business talking to. I'm Lucas Pinkard.
I'm Dan Gibson. These aren't tears on my face.
Every Thursday, we interview somebody else from our favorite fandoms and yours. You can check those interviews out on the Christian Nerd HQ network. You can find us on YouTube at RevRep Podcast at ReverendRep.com. And if you can't remember our name, just go to BaconOffice.com. It's way easier to find new episodes every Thursday. Thank you guys for supporting Christian Nerd HQ, and check out the Reverend and the Reprobate.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was
Falling right. Yeah. Stranger Things. The Stranger Things house was awesome. You walked through season 4, but there was one point where the guy and girl in front of us got a little too spooked.
Fell back. It was crazy.
I had to catch them, and then Nathan had to catch me.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
So what were the different houses that you guys did? You did Stranger Things. You did
Stranger Things, Last of Us, classic monsters, and then
Dueling Dragons.
Okay, so what was the most unique?
Unique.
Different,
Probably.
Unexpected.
I mean, Unexpected was the monsters one, in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah, it was a very
pretty
different version of Phantom than Andrew Lloyd Webber's.
It was crazy because it was based off the book version of Phantom, not the musical.
It
So
was a
we
little
learned
different.
Gaston Leroux's Phantom of the
I actually
Opera.
want to listen to the audiobook now.
Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic. Awesome. Well, welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, that there is a story, it is written on our souls, and that these myths speak to that story. And that is why we are in episode 2 now of an 8-episode series looking at Anakin Skywalker's Padawan turned Star Wars rebel, Ahsoka Tano. This was silence.
Hold your applause.
I was waiting for something to happen there. Nothing happened. This week's episode unfolds the intricate mentorship tapestry. I just put that in there to see if I could say it. Because, you can write this stuff, but you can't say it, right? Woven between Ahsoka Tano and Anakin Skywalker. It starts with some of the earliest encounters in the Clone Wars, which we actually get to see in episode 5, which was awesome.
Spoilers, but
to their heartbreaking separation and beyond. So we're going to delve into the relationship dynamics, their challenges and lessons of this iconic Star Wars relationship.
Yeah, and we just want to thank you for tuning in and listening to our silly little discussions that we like to have about the greatest galaxies to ever exist.
Some people say that this show breaks canon because it's always been in a galaxy.
The story
far,
takes place
far away.
in this galaxy. That's where the main event happens. Calm down.
What are you talking about?
People always find something.
This galaxy?
No, like this Star Wars galaxy. That,
But they're going to the other galaxy.
Yeah, but the story happens. Most of the story happens in the main one.
Yeah. So why don't we just move forward, Nathan?
Yes.
What are we not talking about today?
We're not talking about Kingdom Come. We're on like a strike.
Yeah, that's it. We're on a writer's strike.
We're on a writer's strike.
Except we're still doing other things.
We're
DC Kingdom Come writer's strike.
We are trying to get the Mark Wade interview
almost scheduled. We're finalizing dates.
So when we get that finished, we'll get that episode up, ending our amazing Kingdom Come series. But
I can't wait for you to talk with Mark.
The week you're listening to this, we're recording this at a different time, but the week you're listening to this, issue 2 of Last Days of Lex Luthor comes out.
And he's writing
that. Comes out today when this releases, and he is writing that. So you gotta go check it out.
Are you reading those?
The first issue was amazing.
Nice.
Second issue, I can't wait.
Is that a monthly release? Bi-monthly release?
Bi-monthly.
Okay.
Because it's a prestige format, so it takes a lot more.
So is the art pretty fantastic as well?
Fantastic. Mm-hmm.
I can't wait. That's awesome. Well, enough talking about what we're going to talk about. Let's talk about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I did it. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the beginning of the relationship between Ahsoka Tano and her Jedi master, not master. Is there a problem with her calling him Master?
Why?
Skywalker?
They're supposed to.
He's not a master.
He was the master, but he wasn't given a seat on the council, really.
That's true.
But not even at this point. None of this has happened.
It's an honorary title.
It's just a meaningless title. Okay. Let's reflect a little bit on that first meeting in the Clone Wars. Did we see that basically in the Ahsoka series, or it was shortly after that?
No, that was afterwards.
It was after.
Yeah, I think it was shortly after.
Okay, so it was like a couple episodes after that.
Right.
that
They were
movie.
established.
Okay. What did you guys think about their initial interactions and how it set the stage for their evolving bond, kind of especially considering their very distinct personalities?
Yeah. I mean, their first impressions were clear from the start. You know, Anakin was not so sure how to handle such a spirited Padawan. You know, he kind of reminded him of himself.
Yeah, so there are some similarities.
Yeah, but, you know, Ahsoka had heard these tales of this great Jedi Knight Anakin, and you know, he probably wasn't exactly what she expected. You know, the whole don't ever meet your heroes kind of thing. He's pulled off these amazing stories, but he also kind of breaks rules a lot to do.
And he's just an average. He's still learning how to be a Jedi.
Yeah, he's not a master, like we said.
Breaking rules. Even Ahsoka likes to challenge the authority a lot, and so does Anakin. Very spirited, like you said, both of them are, and so that's in a way that they're very similar. Anakin and Ahsoka. It's like when Anakin was talking with Ahsoka in episode 5 of Ahsoka, he was like, you know, you got a legacy to carry on, and I feel like that legacy is training stubborn Padawans more than anything.
Well, and you throw in there that all the great moments in Star Wars come from your hero ignoring the rules. Luke going back to Cloud City. In this episode, Hera has been violating what her direct commands were. She won't return, even though Leia's running interference. General Solo or General Organa, they call her General Organa. Yeah, she's running interference back with Republic High Command and all this other stuff. So
yeah. But you know, these challenging authority leads to some disagreements between them, because there are times when, you know, Anakin thinks that they should follow the order, or Ahsoka thinks they should follow the order, and among other things, these disagreements though cause Ahsoka and Anakin to grow closer together. You know, when you disagree with someone, it changes the way you interact with them going forward, and I think we see that a lot of times throughout the Clone Wars. These disagreements cause them to see a new ground, and then you know, they grow closer because of it.
As long as they work through the disagreements, they have dialogue regarding the disagreements with it. It does actually make things stronger.
Yes, and it builds trust as well. There's many moments during the Clone Wars show that builds their trust, and one that I can think of. Don't remember Clone Wars all that much, but one that always comes to mind, I think it's the episodes I've watched the most from Clone Wars, but the Mortis arc definitely is one of those moments that builds trust, and also sometimes breaks it, with Anakin kind of seeing that vision of what he's becoming and not knowing if it's true or not. But overall, they, you know, each, you know, Obi-Wan and Ahsoka and Anakin have their own kind of stories in that arc, and then they all kind of work together to get out of that weird Mortis realm, and so that really helps build a trust a lot, and it helps with a lot of things that goes on for sure.
Yeah, their relationship kind of starts off a little rocky, but it grows to it.
And fans' relationships with the new character.
Yeah, which we talked about last episode as well. Let's talk a little bit more kind of how the war kind of plays a major role in helping them develop this relationship, and the Clone Wars is what everything is built around for them.
Name of the series.
Well, that's true. How do you guys feel like maybe some of the battles that they shared together? We got to see one of those in episode 5 of Ahsoka, and the challenges faced by both Anakin and Ahsoka solidify their bond, or maybe even expose some of the weaknesses in it as they go through these battles.
Yes, there's a lot of moments that happen throughout Clone Wars that really play into that in battles and everything. Like the Battle of Christophsis, that's a big one too. But there's a lot of moments that define them, especially since Ahsoka is considered to be a soldier more than anything.
As a child.
Yeah. That's what's mentioned in Ahsoka episode 5 and everything. She's a soldier. And so she finds Anakin to kind of be this general and leader and mentor in these battles that she's having to go through. So in that case, even as a soldier, you bond with your superiors. And so that was a way for her to kind of share those victories with them.
Because you have to trust that they're leading you, and you have to do exactly what they tell you to do.
Exactly. And Anakin had to protect her as well. So that was a very important aspect of their relationship.
Yeah, and I mean, another thing about this war that is which is why people talk about this not being a kid's show is the moral quandaries that are brought up in some of this stuff. You have literal war crimes happening all the time, and the main thing obviously that's brought up throughout this series, and it's even I think talked about in this flashback that we see in Ahsoka is the use of clones. At times Anakin's like, yeah, they're just soldiers. That's
their job, their responsibility. That's what they were created for, right?
And Ahsoka's like, well, they're people too. This is still loss of life, and I think Anakin isn't as cold about it as some generals, like whoever Ponkrell. I hate that.
Everybody hates that guy.
But I think Ahsoka feels more strongly about it than Anakin does. That's why her and Rex become such close friends.
Buds.
Yeah.
Do you think that the age plays a factor of that? With her being barely a teenager at the start, that she kind of bonds with Rex and the other clones more significantly as a result
they're
of
like
their
2 years old.
Well, no, just because that's who she is. As she's younger,
Maybe.
and Anakin sort of sees this as basically the Republic's answer to battle droids.
I think Anakin's just experienced more loss at this point.
He's had
he's more
He's more
jaded and cynical.
detached, and yeah. That's what I think.
Even then, Anakin kind of has these protective instincts over Ahsoka as this kind of paternal figure. You see a lot of times Anakin not allowing Ahsoka to do things because he's wanting to protect her, and Ahsoka's like, "Come on,
like Obi-Wan did with Anakin,
right? Just let me do this. I can do it." And then Anakin doesn't really let her. Eventually, Ahsoka finds a way to do it, and that just happens so many times during the series because Ahsoka kind of wants to have this independence from Anakin.
But it's almost like I can do it myself.
Right.
Right.
And Anakin's like, no, you can't. You're young. Let me protect you.
I don't know any kids that ever acted like that.
Right. So, yeah, it just doesn't happen. It's fantasy.
Right. Kind of going back, though, even though Anakin, wasn't as connected to the clones as Ahsoka, they both could bond over this shared sense of loss. Like, Anakin lost his mother at a young age, or in a pretty devastating way, and then obviously Ahsoka has she bonded with a lot of clones that ended up dying because Filoni likes to just hurt us.
Well, no, because it's war,
right?
And Filoni likes to hurt us. Both are true,
right? But I think in a way they're able to grow closer over that commonality that they both share in that.
And I do think that Anakin learns as much from Ahsoka as Ahsoka learns from Anakin. And I think that Anakin connects with Rex, connects with the other clones on a more personal level because of Ahsoka demonstrating that and living that out, so that when he sees clones losing their lives, it means more to him than
Because
it would.
Yeah. That's fair.
Definitely. And during battles and everything, they had to rely on each other just out of necessity because of survival more than anything.
Yeah, you don't know what's
right.
It's just you against the world at that
Exactly.
point.
So they had to rely on each other to protect each other. Mainly more with Anakin protecting Ahsoka because Ahsoka couldn't do too much. But Ahsoka held her own in many times and protected Anakin many times as well. So they had to rely on each other to really protect themselves, protect their fellow clones, and get the mission done more than anything.
Yeah, and kind of building off of that, though, they often had a different approach to the way they should handle some battles. I think Anakin at times, since he's grown a little bit older at this point, took a more strategic approach to things, while Ahsoka, still being young, kind of wanted to take a more headstrong gung-ho kind of aspect to it, and that caused some differences, but I think it goes back to what you were saying, Nate. They learn from each other. They can learn, eventually Ahsoka does become a great strategist. That's why she's able to help win the Siege of Mandalore, and Anakin kind of remembers his old ways of being a hothead, and that comes in handy at points. Sometimes you just need to go in there.
I think it's funny to think about even one of the early episodes when Plo Koon and some of the clones are stranded because of Grievous and the super weapon that takes out their ship.
Oh, the EMP thing, yeah.
Right, and Ahsoka's like, we got to go save Master Plo. I know that no one's ever survived this, but I know he's not gone. I can sense it. Go after him. And Anakin, and when he's meeting with Obi-Wan and Mace and Yoda. Obi-Wan? That's the basketball playing version. They're meeting, and Anakin is like, no, we can't go against the council. We can't do this. We have to think strategically and all this other stuff. And then later on in the episode, he's like, come on, we're going to save Plo Koon with it. It's fun to watch those kinds of moments with this. Let's look a little bit more at that. Really, it's like the climactic moment in their relationship when, after Anakin has been forced to side with the Jedi Council, to side with the Republic, when it looks like Ahsoka was responsible for treason and all of this. And then, I think we talked about it in the last episode too. She's vindicated. It's proven that it was, she was framed, that it's Barriss Offee that was behind it. And still, though, that lack of trust, or that break in trust, that break in the relationship, causes her to leave the Jedi Order. How do you kind of feel like that perceived betrayal that Ahsoka had between not just Anakin, but the Jedi Order, and then Anakin's involvement in all of that process shape the trajectory of their story, of their bond, their relationship?
I think leading up to that point, there had been some distrust growing between Ahsoka and the Jedi Order as a whole. Up until that point, the way things have been handled, and just the general way that they were involved in the war. I think that was already starting to sow some seeds of doubt into her. But then when Anakin kind of sides with the Order in this, I think that's the final nail in the coffin for her. Her master, her closest friend up until this point, doesn't even trust her. So how can she trust this Order? If Anakin had maybe done things differently, maybe it would have been different. Maybe she would have stayed with the Order, but I think that's what really sealed the deal for her.
Right, but Anakin, it wasn't simple for Anakin. He was torn between trusting his Padawan, which he did trust his Padawan, or sticking with the Order, who technically at that point the Order has been with Anakin for longer than Ahsoka had been with Anakin. So he learned to trust the Order more. And while he never believed,
and the evidence,
right?
The evidence looked like it was against Ahsoka.
There was so much that decided that, and so he had torn loyalties between both the Order and Ahsoka. But he ended up deciding with the Order because there was too much that didn't make sense to trust Ahsoka in that situation, and that just didn't help him.
Yeah, but I bet you that hurts for Ahsoka because they have shared so many moments together over the years. You would think that he would trust her character more, right? He would know her character better than that, know that she would never do a thing like that. And I think that's why it hurts so much for her, is just because of this one moment, which, granted, the evidence was pretty damning, it still kind of threw out everything that they had been through together, and I think that only magnified the hurt and the reason why she left. So.
Right, and then their emotional farewell. There was so much that after it was kind of shown that Ahsoka didn't do it, she still decided to leave the Order, and it devastated Anakin, and honestly, probably led him down the path that began his downfall to becoming Darth Vader. And he just was so remorseful for what he did, for his siding with the Order, and begged Ahsoka to stay because Ahsoka was the one reason he was such a great Jedi Knight. Ahsoka made him a great Jedi. And so it was devastating for him, and he was just apologetic to no end, but Ahsoka had to lead her own way, and she was in the right for what she did. Leaving the Order was right, and just hurt Anakin so much, though.
Yeah, I mean, it really, I think you hit it on the head there, Nate, where is a large contributor to why he left the Order. I think, he, even after the trial, was like, hey, the system works, actually. We're all good. The Order's good. You're good. I don't think he realized the real ramifications of what happened.
It had nothing to do with the facts and vindication and guilt. It had to do with loyalty for Ahsoka.
Right. And he didn't realize that. He was like, oh yeah, justice wins in the end. And I think Ahsoka's leaving kind of helped reshape the way he looked at the Order. He's like, oh wait, maybe it isn't all great. Maybe the Order doesn't quite handle things the way they should. And I think you're right, Nate. I think that's where those first seeds of distrust are sowed, and then Sidious cultivates that even more in episode 3.
Absolutely, it's the loyalty thing with Sidious, right?
Yeah,
and so all the evidence seems to get pointed against Sidious.
They asked you to spy against me, didn't they?
And that's exactly what's going on. And so he actually, Sidious manipulates that feeling within Anakin to pull him into the dark side with it.
And the final part of Ahsoka leaving Anakin had an impact on every time that they met since then, and we especially saw that in episode 5 of Ahsoka. It hurt Anakin, and it led Ahsoka onto a different path than what she was in originally, and helped her become her own Jedi, basically. But it left an impact on Anakin, and we see it in Twilight of the Apprentice as well, when Anakin and Ahsoka are fighting. About that. But there's just so many lasting impacts on just their relationship and dynamic that came from those last few episodes of season 5 of Clone Wars that just determined their path.
Can you imagine being a fan of this series and that being the way that season ends, and then it gets canceled?
How did it get canceled? It was an insanely popular show.
It was the purchase of... They had already filmed some things. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the purchase of Lucasfilm by Disney, and Disney shut it down, and they had certain episodes that became the ones that went to Netflix.
Lost episodes.
The lost episode, season 6, and then they never got resolution to the story of Ahsoka with it. And fans, that's what the whole Save the Clone Wars thing was really all about. Let's talk a little bit, and that kind of actually gets played.
Season
out.
5 came out in 2012, so that's right when Disney purchased.
Yeah, exactly. That we did get that a little bit more fleshed out in season 7 of the Clone Wars when they finally brought it back, as we kind of see what Ahsoka's life is like after she leaves the Jedi Order, and as we watch Anakin kind of struggling with the darkness that's pulling at him. How do you think their journeys kind of parallel and also, go in different directions during that transformative period?
Right. When Ahsoka left the Order, she was able to discover herself as a Jedi and herself just as a person more than anything. She was able to figure out who she actually was, and we see that with the Martez sisters in the beginning of season 7, and then we even see that if the Ahsoka book is still canon, I'm not even sure anymore, but if the Ahsoka book is still canon, her interacting with the other people in that village really helped her learn how to be a Jedi, and she connected with them and had attachments with them that eventually led her to becoming a better Jedi. And then the Inquisitors come and they destroy the town, and that was insanely dark. I remember for that
a young adult book.
For a young adult book,
Yeah.
I was very surprised. But then Ahsoka protected those people she was attached to, and that's what was important for her. And then got the kyber crystals back and kind of became the true Jedi that she needed to be from that point. So,
But I don't think she even thinks of herself, even at this point, as a Jedi.
no.
Just a protector. But the flip side of this is, while all that's happening, like you mentioned, Dad, Anakin's kind of falling closer to the dark side. He's really beginning to see the horrors of this war. The mistreatment of clones and the lack of loyalty,
the corruption of the Republic,
and the lack of the Jedi Order behaving in a way that doesn't seem like what the Jedi Order should be doing. And I think all of that starts to push him down this, not necessarily the dark side. He's not there yet, but he's starting to really reconsider some serious things here at that point.
Well, we also kind of see that Anakin is striving to double down as he struggles and he sees the corruption. He's trying to become more engaged with the Jedi Order, more loyal. I remember the opening to Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Right, they're on Grievous's ship, and they're trapped. And I think Obi-Wan is like, asking what they do, and Anakin's like, we do patience, right? He's like trying. It's the Jedi way to do.
I say patience,
and he's trying to be a better Jedi.
Right.
He's constantly trying to be a better Jedi. And the reality is, the more Ahsoka moves away from being a part of the Jedi Order, the more she ends up functioning
Being a better
with
Jedi.
the righteousness that a Jedi and the justice that
Anakin was
Jedi.
trying to follow the textbook Jedi ways from the teachings, but
As opposed to what's right.
Ahsoka was becoming a Jedi for what was truly right for a Jedi.
Yeah. But she, like you said, the reason that she is becoming a better Jedi is she's almost, how do I put this, freed to discover what being a Jedi is to her, if that makes any sense. While Anakin, he kind of puts more limitations on himself, which is the exact opposite of what made Anakin such a great Jedi to start with. Is he was this headstrong,
right versus wrong.
yeah, and like just there was one way, and it was what was right for him. That's why. Okay, granted, this isn't a great example, but that's why he went after his mom. Like he was.
No, I think that's a great example.
He handled things the wrong way at the end there, but he didn't think twice when he saw that his mom was in danger, and it hurt because he had to break the Jedi code at this point, but it didn't matter at that point. Someone he cared about was in danger, and he had to save her.
And if he would have listened to that instinct when it first happened, he would have probably been able to save her life. And that's what sets him starting down this dark path, even before the Ahsoka stuff.
And that's why Ahsoka is a better Jedi, because she's not limited by this code of no attachments or things like that. She's like, oh no, this is the right thing. I have to do it right now.
And it all boils down to internal and even external conflicts that happen with these people. Anakin's consistently being attacked, not just from outside sources, but inside sources too, of who he is and his power, and then Sidious manipulating him and everything like that. There's a lot of attacks against Anakin, but with Ahsoka, there are these internal battles she goes through after she leaves the Order. But when she's not dealing with everything that's wrong with the Order, she's able to learn what the Force is truly like, and that helps her with conflicts and everything that goes on around her. Like we do see in the Ahsoka book, that happens a lot, but we do see that it affects Anakin more than it affects Ahsoka, because Ahsoka's able to handle it better because of the environment that she's in. Anakin is a soldier, but Ahsoka is a civilian at this point, and so it helps her be able to cope with everything better, instead of just, you got to go to your next mission, you got to do all this. And that was what was affecting Ahsoka more than anything.
We don't see Ahsoka again after the Siege of Mandalore.
Except for Small Tales of the Jedi thing.
Right. We don't really see her again until 15, 16 years later in the story when she enters into the story in Star Wars Rebels with it. What do you think the dynamics between Ahsoka and now Darth Vader in that story reveal about that chasm that has grown between them over that time?
It's very apparent when Ahsoka is fighting Anakin in Twilight of the Apprentice in the Sith Temple, and Ahsoka breaks Vader's mask, and she sees that it's Anakin, and finally connects the dots. And it's difficult to find the right emotion that she goes through, but shock and devastation.
Yeah, and I think it even ties back to the previous episode, though, where she has the vision in the temple on Malachor, and she's basically told that Anakin is Vader.
And then it's confirmed.
But she doesn't want to believe it. And now she has to.
She's kind of going through this slight grieving process as well. This was her mentor, her friend, like a brother almost to her, and he fell this dark and became this giant Sith Lord, one of the most powerful Sith Lords of all time. And it affected her so much. And then you just see her give up. She felt like that there wasn't much to live for after that. So she was going to protect Kanan and Ezra.
I think that's a really important line that I want you to flesh out just a little bit or explain a little bit. She doesn't have anything to live for anymore.
Because she felt like Anakin was still out there just being a Jedi, or at least was hoping to.
Or he had died.
He had died, but then realizing that
the fate worse than
that
death
the Anakin that she knew was dead was worse than anything that could have happened.
And had become
Vader. Because it's not Anakin in there anymore. It's just Vader. She didn't see any of her master left. And so that was what really affected her in that battle.
But she didn't really get to dwell on that for too long because they have their roles are completely different now. It used to be a apprentice and master, and now they're adversaries. Her former master is trying to kill her at this point, and she is forced to defend herself in that moment. And we kind of see that again in episode 5 a little bit when he turns to the dark side, quote unquote. And it's back to that same moment. They're on is it Malachor? She's her master, who she thought was everything was okay again, is now trying to kill her, and she's got to fight her greatest friend, and it's a part of what hurts so much in episode 3 with Anakin and Obi-Wan. That's why that hurts so much for Obi-Wan. He's like, I can't do it. Don't make me do it to Yoda. But it's this heartbreaking moment.
And there were just times when, even in Rebels, and of course this was shown in more of episode 5 of Ahsoka, but in Rebels we see during the battle between Ahsoka and Anakin, there's just ideas of past bonds that show up. And while they're not mentioned a ton during the battle, you can just see this realization mainly from Ahsoka of just this idea of her master, this friend she had, and now she's battling this Sith Lord in a Sith temple, and it just affects her through her fighting. She just is not as cohesive anymore, and she's just very devastated at this point.
Yeah, but I think something important about this duel on in Rebels is the outcome. Vader obviously survives and he gets out, meaning he's still the victor in this moment, and Ahsoka loses kind of. She loses. She has to be saved by Ezra in the future.
Yeah, but we don't know that for 2 more seasons.
No, which sucks. But she has to reevaluate things. She has to in a way accept that the Anakin she knew is gone. He's no longer. She struggles with that belief of, is he gone or is he still there? Because that's why she lost, is this kind of compassion that she still had for for her former friend with this hope that he was still there. So that kind of like affects her going on from this point.
And there's this idea of, for Ahsoka, does this bring closure or more questions than anything? And I do believe that it brought closure for Ahsoka more than anything, because the Anakin she knew, her master, was dead. That's what she thought. And then we see this further in the World Between Worlds episode when she's stopping Ezra from saving Kanan, because she knows that Ezra can't save Kanan because Ahsoka can't save her master. Neither of them can do anything about their situation. And that helps bring kind of Ahsoka and Ezra closer together because they both go through that. But at that moment, you can see that Ahsoka has closed the book on Anakin and is moved past that point now.
Well, I think you're right. I think that she closes the book on Anakin as being, he's Darth Vader, he's gone to the dark side. It's that Obi-Wan Kenobi, from a certain point of view, he's dead. Luke's father's dead. Anakin's dead, right? That kind of thing. But I don't think that she's moved on. And I think that that's what the entire story so far in the Ahsoka series has been helping us understand is Ahsoka. We don't know the story yet. We don't know how it happened. We don't know how she gets out of the World Between Worlds again. We don't know how she from Rebels, at the end of Rebels.
Well,
we don't know how she gets out of Malachor.
We don't know how she gets out of Malachor, what she's been doing during the Galactic Civil War, even what's happened with her and Sabine before this. We don't know a lot of the details of that. But what we know is that emotionally, Ahsoka's still at Malachor.
Yeah,
that's what we learn in this
episode 5.
In episode 5. In it, what do you think? As we think about the Ahsoka series specifically now, how do you think that Ahsoka's past and Anakin and their relationship shapes the decisions that she's making, the revelations that we get in this, especially in this last episode, which we're recording this about a week in advance before you hear it. So
we haven't seen.
So we have not seen episode 6 yet, but we're coming out of episode 5. What do you think we learn about Ahsoka as a result of what we've seen in this?
We see that Ahsoka definitely learned a lot from Anakin, and who she was shaped by Anakin. And you could tell this just from the conversations that they have in episode 5. They're very similar, quick-witted, snarky in some points, and very kind of they conflict with each other at a lot of points, just because Ahsoka now that she understands that Anakin is Vader, she brings that up a lot because that defines who Anakin is now in her eyes.
Yeah. She can't move past
that. She can't move past that. And so that was something that influenced Ahsoka, especially in this episode, of how she behaved with Anakin throughout this entire thing. Even when she went in the flashbacks,
there's hesitation.
It did add some of that. She was, of course, happy to see Anakin again, but was very hesitant on why she was seeing Anakin again.
I think it's interesting that it seems like there's such a connection between Ahsoka and Anakin in this, World Between Worlds idea. That's where kind of her entrance into this World Between Worlds was because of Anakin, and now she's back there again with Anakin. Granted, under a little bit of different circumstances, and Anakin's there this time, but there seems to be this almost unbreakable connection between the two that even the Force and the universe is reinforcing with that. I think that's just it's interesting.
And in this episode, we see Ahsoka confront not only Anakin but her past as well, in some of the moments that we see her go to with Clone Wars. The whatever battle she was on.
It was Christophsis. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if we got confirmation on what it was, but
I'm almost certain
it was that. And
because there's the Battle of Christophsis is the battle in the Clone Wars where she struggles with being in command, making a bad decision, losing a bunch of clones, and that's what we see in this story.
And then the Siege of Mandalore as well was a huge aspect of her life and was brought up again, and she was allowed to confront her past with these moments and confront who she was and who she now needs to be, because she was very stuck in the past with her being a soldier more than anything, because that's what she was trained to be, and she needed to learn how to become fully a Jedi at this point.
Well, do you think that what's got her stuck in the past, though, is going back to what I was saying earlier? She's still on Malachor, or she's still in the world between worlds. She can't seem to move on emotionally with it, and it's because she blames herself for leaving Anakin in season 5 of Clone Wars. She says she thinks, if I don't leave Anakin, I know he wouldn't have turned.
Right.
And so she comes to that confrontation in season 2 of Star Wars Rebels at Twilight of the Apprentice, and she realizes, no, the truth is Anakin Skywalker has become this horrible Darth Vader. And that's my fault. It's all on me. And that's why she can't move on. It's like she's stuck in that realization with it. So it's so much more than just being stuck with this battle thing. It's being stuck with, she blames herself for Anakin becoming Vader with it.
Yeah, I think, something we can learn from just all of this discussion is Ahsoka had this issue of moving on from the past. I think that's what, she wasn't grounded by these rules that the Jedi enforce on her, but she was still hanging on to the past and the issues that were caused because of the things that she went through. And that limited her as a Jedi. While she wasn't limited by these rules, she was limited by her not growing as a person. And that's what we see in episode 5. After this whole moment with Anakin in the world between worlds, she's back to herself. She's got that smile. She's literally wearing like brighter clothes, and she's got that witty humor and carelessness.
And she calls herself a Jedi. You guys do realize that, right? So Jason, she tells Jason to go with Hu Yang onto the ship.
Yes. How, you ever been on a Jedi starfighter?
He's like, I've seen ships before. And he's like, but have you ever been on a Jedi starfighter before? And that's the first time she's called herself a Jedi.
Right.
Ever. With that. So.
Yes. And it shows how different the future of Ahsoka is going to be, because she chose life, and that was the big lesson that was being taught.
Which, by the way, I think we need to acknowledge, Nate, that the reason that she's in the world between worlds is to finish her Jedi training, which I think somebody said on their last episode,
I don't know,
was going to be the reason she was there. I don't think it played out the way that you thought.
Not quite, but I do think it was showing how she could be the master she needed to be now for Sabine. That was one of the main things. Even Anakin mentioned that. He's like, you have a legacy to carry on. As my master taught me and as I taught you, you have the legacy to carry on. So she's meant to be a master, and Sabine is who she's meant to be teaching. And Ahsoka couldn't get past, like you were saying, couldn't get past Vader, couldn't get past her own past to be able to teach Sabine what she needed to learn. So now that she's kind of
Sabine is stuck that in her learning because her master is stuck.
Exactly. Ahsoka wasn't able to teach Sabine because she wasn't able to get past her own past. And now that she's able to, throughout all of this, she'll be able to be the master Sabine is needing.
Yeah. That's good, man. I want to watch this episode 5 all over again. Genuinely, like trying to figure out when I'm going to do that as soon as we get done recording. I think it's a good time for a dad moment here.
I am your father.
So watching episode 5 of Ahsoka brought a lot, even talking about it just now, brought a lot of emotions, especially as a father. It's reminiscent to me of those moments when we stand alongside our children, witnessing all of their trials and all of their triumphs, seeing Anakin, despite his own, I think the word complex makes sense, journey. We see him re-enter Ahsoka's life to guide her was really touching. It made me reflect on the countless times that we as parents offer guidance and support, and we're not trying to steer our kids in the direction that we choose, but we want to help them discover their own path. And in this episode, Anakin's intervention, in essence, was his way of imparting the final lessons of her Jedi training. But it was also more than just training. It was about closure. It was about understanding and empowering her to face the future with newfound strength. And it's those lessons and moments where we help our children really confront their past, embrace their destiny, that's the kind of thing that's going to stay with them forever. And so with Ahsoka's story, as told in this episode, it's really a testament to that kind of transformative relationship and then the deep, unbreakable bonds that it can forge. So it was awesome. Very good episode, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I enjoyed that conversation, and I'm not joking. I think we get the stuff done we got to get done, and I'm going to be sitting on the patio watching episode 5 of Ahsoka. Anybody want to join me, you're welcome to. That's pretty good.
And if you want to find us on any social media, we're on Twitter or X or whatever you like to call it. We're on that platform. We're on Facebook. We have a Facebook discussion group, Tatooine Sons, SONS. Also, sometimes Instagram. Not too much. We're mainly on Facebook and Twitter. You can find us there. And we can also find us on our website, TatooineSons.com, SONS.
Yeah, right. Make sure that you're giving us some ratings and reviews on wherever you listen to this. It's takes 2 seconds on Spotify. You just go up there and you boop.
That's how long it takes. It takes you long enough to go.
It's two clip boops. You got to boop it, and then you got to boop the star, and then you're good. Boop, and then you're done.
That's it.
It takes 2 seconds, and most of you are probably listening to this.
So it's not even a beep bop boop. It's just a boop beep bop.
Yeah. Unless you have to leave the podcast player to go to the main podcast page.
Beep bop.
Anyway, it takes 2 seconds. So just go ahead and do it. We really appreciate it.
Please.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for listening. We really do appreciate this. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. Next week's episode 3, we're really going to dive into the Rebel stuff with this, connect with her role.
Hopefully we have more Rebel stuff to talk about next week.
Well, yeah, and I think that we're going to see some more connections with that. We'll talk about her role in the Rebel Alliance and we're going to compare it maybe a little bit with other kind of historical and contemporary resistance movements, talk about the Rebel Alliance from that perspective a little bit, drawing some links to the rebellion and maybe some real world resistance fighters with that. So it should be an interesting, fun conversation. I don't know where it's going to end up going.
We'll find out.
But we're going to have a good fun talking about it. Anything else that you guys want to talk about or anything else you want to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Joy, please.
Yep, yep.